emergency manager in charge of some of doing some of this stuff.
Yeah, they want to put them in charge of taking trainings and then coming back to train like the smaller fire departments, like Eddie and Robinson and stuff like that. And
because there was an issue over that way when did that guy get burned up? Burned over there in that vehicle. Over in Cherry. Wasn't it? Yeah. Couple months or yeah. Oh, yeah. But that happened over in Sheridan County.
Okay.
A guy was in a vehicle. They burned up the whole fire department, but it's a volunteer fire department, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
And that might affect both of these what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who else?
But okay, then the answer on that one is, okay, they took some training, they did it wrong, then they can come back to the trainer. The trainer is working for the county. So would it come back circle around to the county for a liability thing?
That's probably another thing he should put on.
Our emergency Gail, she does put on multi-department trainings.
She does do multi-department
For fire and ambulance. She's done like anhydrous, train derailment, different things like that.
But she's not the trainer.
No, she just kind of organizes.
She just organizes it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what their job is to organize it. But they want actually to have the emergency manager give the training. And I don't think that's fair to the emergency managers.
I can't imagine they would be an expert on that.
Right.
I'm on the fire department and ambulance, and we do all in-house training, or we get other people in to train us that are qualified just for that. There's a lot.
You get people that are professionals at training you, right?
North Dakota Forest Service, for fire department, and all that. I mean, there's a lot you gotta know. That's the trouble.
Well, we've had the fire department come and ask that, or it's kind of pushing this too, to get the emergency managers to do that. I just don't think that's part of their job. And the county would be liable.
It's hard to find somebody that would want to go train for all that and come back and train somebody, because
Right.
it's a lot of training.
There's a lot of hours in training to it.
Yeah, and just different scenarios, all different things you have to train for.
Yeah.
I think the emergency manager's system should probably set up the training with a professional rather than do it yourself. I think that would be a lot more.
To go find professionals that do it, and so now this person is gonna come and do this presentation.
Right. That's kind of what the emergency manager does. I mean, they do like active shooter trainings and some different, tabletop type trainings and stuff like that.
There's all sorts of resources from the state that you can get in, so that's what she does. I think that's the best way to go.
I got a question, do you have LAPC, local emergency? Okay, in our little county, we've struggled to have an emergency manager. We've been without one half the time I've been on here. We now contract with Sussex County for services. And so we got somebody to go to. They've got a 3-person department, so they can take on more things. So, at the LAPC meetings, we don't have them as often as we should. So you have law enforcement, ambulance, fire, all of them, and they bring in people from the state or whatever for trainings. The emergency manager can put on exercises for training. We haven't had one long enough to really do much of those, but I think that's kind of you're talking about, you can bring in, that's an organization that can bring in people, resources from the state.
If we had chemical spill one down at Hurstville a couple years ago, and I forget what all departments came, but Goodrich and Bowden and Pheasant and just multi-agency, and she put it on and got in contact with who she needed to come together and put it on. And they're trained to train people.
And your emergency manager here has apparently gotten some pretty big grants for fire departments and stuff.
She does a good job at it.
Where did she go to get those grants, or?
She tell you,
I think the emergency manager's listserv is probably a go-to move. They've got their own listserv just like we do. You know, somebody that's the emergency manager in Burley County or Cass County has a lot of ideas that we probably haven't thought of. She's very active with other emergency managers and how to plan for these.
Where the county is involved, the association has people down there.
Yeah, we do have a new program that just started this within the last year. We have contracted with 2 engineering firms, and it was initially and primarily about road funding kinds of grants, but they do have capabilities to do more than just that. So if you've got a specific topic area that you want to have somebody explore grants, they'll do that for you. And what they get out of it is, when grants are written, there's usually a payment for the person managing the grant, and so that's what they get out of it. So there's no charge to the program. Jenny Deason in our office has been the person, the primary contact there.
I think our emergency manager has contacted them and they said there's nothing.
I would also encourage them to be involved in the Emergency Managers Association, which is not just county, there's city emergency managers in it, and the state. They have I think it's in March that they have their annual convention usually. Oh wait, no, actually it's right before ours. It's in the fall. It's in, I think, September. August or September, yeah. And I usually try to go and stop by and listen at least on some of the topics and stuff, because they're really good. And they have trainers there that, not only would give a good presentation, but you can ask them to come to your county. Because that's a big part of what the state does, is the training. We used to do, right after 9/11, we had federal funding, and we actually hired 2 people to go out and do trainings, tabletop exercises, and live exercises for that. But that federal funding is not what it used to be.
Yeah. I think he did go to the one last year in August. And that was his first year there.
Okay.
So I think it just needs, the emergency managers need more time. It's a learning job. Kind of like the auditor's job, it's a learning job.
Yeah. And hopefully they're not learning in the middle of a disaster.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
With all this shit, we gotta keep moving on
Yeah.
here.
First net is kind of.
We covered the fire and ambulance, I
Yeah.
think, and the other one. Is there any more kind of discussion about that, or?
First net kind of falls in with that too. Does any other counties have first net?
Yeah.
Okay.
That answers part of that question.
Okay, our county was contacted by FirstNet, which is run through AT&T, and they supposedly can do more with fire emergency management. If the phone lines would go down, they bring in a portable, like a portable tower, where they can use the cell phones and more stuff like that. I was wondering if any of the counties have FirstNet or have heard of it or been contacted by it.
In Foster County, we've got some FirstNet phones. We've started with some, I know the auditor and certain courthouse people got them, then the road department, and eventually the county commission. When we got them, they basically provided the phone. But we pay a monthly fee for each phone, just like everything else. But the couple things that they told us was that, when there's a major event, which usually doesn't happen on the road, but something like the fire and flood, when all communications went down, the cell phone towers were still working, but the public kept it busy all the time, because that's all anybody had. So first responders couldn't use their cell phones, they couldn't rely on it. With FirstNet system, they got a federal grant, AT&T got the grant to set up this system where there's always bandwidth reserved for first responders. So, that was the sales point. The other thing was that, I don't know if everybody's going to participate with the siren radio updates. They can be used not as replacement, but they can tie in.
They can tie into the
They
siren.
can tie in. It's kind of like there may be areas where you might happen to have cell coverage that's better than the whole radio coverage in a deeper beam or something. It takes some work, but that was one of the things they told us that we could do. Now, Verizon has offered some of these same things, and I don't know what.
Right, we have the Verizon one.
But they have one that has the reserve bandwidth also.
Yeah.
I think it's a separate sign up than what consumers have.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's called public safety, I think it's called through Verizon. And that's what we're on now. But, this FirstNet has come in and to me, they've gotten kind of pushy. So I think, they did send us some equipment and they did drive the whole county with that equipment. And our sheriff said that it was the same coverage, what we have now with them. They took it in like, buildings, like Quonsets and stuff like that to see if they could talk, and it was the same, it seemed to be the same. So I don't know if they're thinking about that for fire, or for the sheriff's department, or. So I was just wondering if any of the other counties have had FirstNet.
No, you don't. No, we don't.
I'm glad you brought up the radio still.
Yeah.
Is that a bottomless funding pit there, or what exactly is that?
And then the batteries are dying now, and then they don't, because we got the radios for the siren, but
Yeah.
now the batteries are not holding charge, and so I agree with you.
And they're not free.
No, they are not.
No.
That's all I have.
Okay, well, with moving on here, first time PERS employee education, NDPERS.
I put this on here because I was just curious what you're doing with first-time employees that are getting into the new defined contributions plan. And I might even throw this at Jeff for a moment. I didn't realize this during the course of that legislation, but apparently you can opt out of PERS now.
Yeah, and that was a win for us. We thought, there's right now, opt out to what is the question. So Aaron has been talking to Nationwide, the same folks that you have the supplemental retirement with, and seeing if maybe we can work out something with them. So we're hoping that that'll be something newsworthy in the semi-near future, that maybe we can come up with some sort of retirement plan that counties can opt into. I know one concern that came up in our board meeting from your auditor representative. She said, okay, so now I'm doing payroll, and I got some people who are grandfathered in on the state system. I got other people who are coming in new on the new state system. Now you want another thing that I would have to calculate. So it was maybe not overwhelmingly enthusiastically received. But yeah, we want to talk about it. These things take a long, long time before everybody that's on one system dies out, and sorry to say it, and you get everybody on the new system. But unfortunately, that's what the state has done to us. So.
Yeah, this is a kind of a tough deal, and we don't have a lot of employees coming and going, thank heavens, or at least not yet. But I had my first
first person, new employee that, okay, got them all the paperwork. I said, now it's your job to log into this site and go through some things. And in Wells County, under the old system, we paid all but 1% of their NDPERS. And so I'm trying to figure out, what do I owe this person? You know, what guidance should I give them? And, you know, my guidance is, well, why wouldn't you? You know, and I've been hiring people for a long time, albeit not necessarily at the county, and getting young people to understand health insurance and retirement is, I could just as well be talking to a stump, you know? So that's what made me ponder this question, is what are you doing to educate young people who are getting prepared for this? Now, if this is their first job, why wouldn't they take the all but 1%? But then that's around their neck for the rest of the time. So if they go to County B, and County B only pays the required portion, now that's coming out of their pocket. But that's a thought they should have had when they accepted employment there, right? So what are you doing to educate young people about their retirement? And that's what my question is. Now, this employee lasted 2 days, so I guess it's no longer my concern.
I'm on the elevator board, Napoleon, and some young guys come into work. They don't care. You can talk till you're blue in the face. They don't think about their retirement or hospitalization. They just want cash.
Yeah.
That's all they want.
That's the young crowd. That's the young crowd.
I wasn't any better. I wasn't any better. Now that retirement hit me, I'm screwed.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that is, I mean, I hope that's helpful, and I think we are trying to get something that then all, like you were saying, if somebody moves from one county to the other, that would be pretty seamless. I mean, in the meantime, if your bank has like an insurance branch or whatever that offers investments and that sort of thing and wanted to offer it, you could actually sign up with that, so, you know.
But you bring up a good point of exactly how many plans are we expected to manage?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe the legislature, and maybe they're wise to do this. Maybe they'd love to see all of us do something else, please, anything. Don't leave us on the hook for retirement, because I'm sure that is gonna be a tough thing to manage over the course of time. But I'm just curious what other counties are doing, and what you know, Kidder County for the longest time, you guys weren't in PERS.
We're not in PERS.
And we everybody else was going, how did you do that?
We're not in PERS, we do a match. The commission last year moved it up to $250 match. If the employee puts in $250, the county will put in $250. We send that into Nationwide. I'm over and done with it. If the county only puts, or the employee only puts $50 in, the county will only match $50. So it's whatever the employee.
Way less expensive for the county, but not necessarily a attractive benefit to the employee. However, maybe the young ones don't care, but they eventually will.
We've got some, we were doing $100 or $150, that's way too expensive, I can't do that. And now we're running into the problem where Nationwide has an option that you can do a loan on your retirement and you actually pay yourself back at a percentage rate. Now they want us to attach that. I don't think that's a good idea, but these younger blade guys think this is a great option to have. And to me, the retirement should be your retirement for when you retire. I don't feel you should be able to go in and loan out on your portion. The way that was explained is on their portion, they can say their house needs a will. Cost $15,000, they've got that much in their retirement on their cash. They can take that out and then make payments to themselves at like 3%. To me, it doesn't make much sense, but I'm not of the younger generation either. Looks at that. But that's what we do in Kidder. I mean, it's just real simple, I collect it out of their payroll, match it with county funds, send it off to Nationwide and over that way.
Okay, so are there any more questions on that? If none, levy and growth caps. So that on anything?
Yeah, obviously, we're gonna have a training on Monday, but, and this won't be a concern out of the gate. It's probably not a big deal today. This is gonna become an anchor around all of our necks in this part of the world. Again, if you're in Burley County, Ward County, Williams County, Stark County, Cass County, you're gonna have growth that is gonna be substantial, and you're gonna be able to manage this. But I look at what 3% will net Wells County. Have to pay employees, you have to buy equipment, you can't do both. Not in any given year. I don't know if you've looked at your numbers or whatever, but out of the box, we'll be okay for a year or two. But this is gonna become a disaster for cities, counties, and rural areas. This is gonna be an off the charts colossal failure for all of us, and I'm just curious. And I know they're gonna study this, and they're gonna figure this out. Maybe not in the population centers where the bulk of the legislators are coming from, but this is gonna become an overwhelming challenge for us. My dollars, $134,000 is what I can expect will be my net gain in any given year. What does a blade cost? $500,000.
Well, we did, I think ours is around 80,000. And I really got blasted because when I spoke at the legislature, the Senate hearing, I gave an example. What is this going to do to us? We're a small county that's hardly gonna cover the increase in the health insurance that we probably would face. And what kind of percentage of, are you not even gonna be able to give a salary increase COLA? But I made the comment, so then where do we cut? Our biggest department is the road department. So what do we have to do? Cut a blade operator? Oh my God, that was an example I gave. It got in the newspaper, townships are coming in. I mean, it was just Webster Dictionary's meaning of example. Nobody was getting that. Even one of our commissioners, who is not here. He got all these townships to come in and hash this all over again. It wasn't something we ever talked about at the board. It was something I presented to the state. Because then the one senator said, so I also talked about law enforcement. Trying to get a deputy. I said, we stole one from Jamestown City Police Department. Great guy. We wanted just to get out of that patrolling in that area. A little calmer life for him. We were lucky to get somebody like that, but what's it cost us to attract somebody? I said, it threw our whole pay scale off. When we're trying to get people to come, well, you guys know what it did when our blade operators, we're paying $30 an hour. Not too many are paying that, even though it's probably market.
We're paying 26 for CDL. Yeah.
You don't give them their insurance, do that?
Yeah, they have full benefits.
Full benefits plus $30 an hour they get. Well, yeah, they're getting over 50. There's about, benefits are about 20. So they're getting 50 total.
Yeah. So making that point to the legislature, he said, so your only option then is to cut services. Yeah. That's what you're doing to us with this 3% cap. Now they want to know how this all is affecting us. They want to study this. So anything that happens
in the next year, you need to be writing that stuff up and getting it to, I think it was the tax department, who was on that call yesterday? They were
Tax
saying
department.
that they want to study this, so you gotta make sure that you're tracking and getting it back to them. Because they're gonna do a study.
And there may have been several years where you didn't make an increase that met 3%. We had a year, here it's in my time, which is only 4 years at the county auditor's office, the difference between one year's budget and the next, and I don't remember if it was 21 to 22 or 22 to 23, the difference was less than $100. So we asked for no increase, essentially. Now, I know there's a provision in here in the course of 5 years, but you're gonna take the 3% every year because you can't be put in a position where you don't, first of all. But I just don't see those dollars keeping up. And you mentioned health insurance. When do you get your health insurance rates? Mine will show up in November, when there's no longer anything I can do about it. It'll be what it is, you just gotta swallow it and move on with your life. And we're only a couple of years removed from 16.76% increase in health insurance.
We have 15% in PERS this year, and they were projecting 15.7.
But you're doing 3%.
Yeah, I know. I told our blade operator, our commissioners on our last commission meeting last Friday, they were talking about getting another new blade, and I said, hey, wait a minute. I said, where do you guys think you're gonna get the money for this? You've got blades that are under loan right now. I said, there's not gonna be money for a blade, sorry. I said, I'm even looking at, there's not gonna be money for raises, because the health insurance went up. It's just the cost of living, the fuel for the blades and everything goes up.
We had this experience in the late 80s and early 90s. We went through this for 6 years, 3 different legislative sessions. We were limited to 3% one session, 2% one session, 1% one session. It was very, very tough. We weren't able to give any salary increases except for, I believe it was 1 year, and then we were able to give $10. And then we had complaints from individuals that just put them into a higher tax bracket. The belts have to really get tightened, and you probably can't do any hiring, can't do a lot of purchasing. You have to tighten your belts and try to work through it. Because there's no help from the legislature.
And I don't know if you're planning to, during your budget time, it might be a good idea to have employees come and you sit down and have a talk with them. When I experienced that in my prior job, our commission had to do that when the state, there wasn't gonna be any increases. Jobs were gonna be cut. There was no way that they could continue going the way they were. And then it was, okay, coming up with the whole scenario, who's gonna get laid off first? It was a nightmare. So, if it comes to the point where you're not gonna be able to give employees raises, you need to have them come in and understand this wasn't our decision. It was put on us. So, I think you're not gonna get their buy-in, but I think they need to understand what the legislature did.
To the small community.
Yeah.
To the small communities, the way this looks to me.
And we really don't have any other alternatives of where you go for resources, Sales tax really is a limited option, in these areas, that's another advantage that Burley County, Cass County, Ward County, they all have is, I guess if they wanted to generate some funds, that it's not gonna be popular, but that may get other people to pay their bills, shoppers and so on, but I just don't know, and this is like anything else, there's unintended consequences. It all sounded good in theory. We're gonna cap things here, and that's gonna, boy, that is gonna create some headaches for you guys.
But we went and shot ourselves in the foot because when we got elected as a 5 member, the commissions before us, their budgets were all over the place and they had money. We had excess of money in our, okay, what do? We do this responsibly and under the law, you can only have so much. So we kept things down and we cut our tax, our mill rate and stuff, just so that we wouldn't have this. So here we are now, we're down to, we're down to bare bottom when
And 3% of that is less than 3% if you're maxed out.
And that's the other thing, I tried to say, okay, Foster County's at 32 mils, we're not even close to our cap. Why are you capping people who are not capped out?
That was my thing too, because, we lost everything from 44 mils to 60 mils.
Yeah.
That's all gone.
Yeah.
So
And
the counties that have tried to stay down
Right.
and watched our budget and everything, we're the ones who's getting penalized.
Yeah.
And it just went like this over their heads when you dropped, it was incredible.
Well, and the other thing that came up was, those road levies were expiring. We had to go out and we got that to pass on a primary element. I could not believe it passed. We went to 25. It was the 10 mils and the 10 mils that were expiring. We went for 25. We cannot even use that 25 mils. Because the training they just gave, and they'll explain this again probably on Monday, is those mills do not give you the authority to spend the money. It gives you the authority to levy, but that doesn't mean that now that 3% cap comes in, that's the cap on what we did for this year. So it didn't matter that we passed that 25. So to me, it was like,
Why did we go through all that?
right, because you required us to do that because those bills were expiring, and now you're saying, well, that doesn't matter now. But that was our legal authority to do the road, to fund the road department. Then you're saying now you can't use those, even though, we have to go out for another question on the ballot to get more money? So how are they gonna word those questions? Is it just money, not mills? Because they're not looking at the mills anymore, at least for the time being. I think, and I had said that in my presentation to the Senate too, was it's gonna be hard pressed after we just went out for that. The school's got the new school, which they're really proud of, but there was so much turmoil over that school levy. And then when it passed, we're so proud of that school. Really? After all the crap we had to go through to get it passed, I said, there's no way we're gonna, in our small county, that we're gonna get any kind of, extra funding passed at this time.
I'm worried about all of it. One of the things that people haven't talked about a lot is when we had to raise our salary, we were just trying to compete with the private sector. And if we can't continue to compete with the private sector anymore, I'm worried about losing our ability to retain employees. I feel we've got a really good group right now in our county. I don't want to lose any of them. But if the private sector salaries can follow inflation, and what, then we can't. I'm worried about that. And there was talk about an amendment that allowed for inflation. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it didn't make it. I remember talking about it, so it's about that.
Yeah, the current CPI, which I try and follow as best I can, is at 2.4. So your 3% leaves a 0.6 margin left there. So it's a challenge. So I suppose if you guys have to get rid of somebody, it'd probably be Haley.
See ya.
Oh, you just want her back over
So with all that said, can we move on to wind farm pros and cons, or any more discussion on the levies? Well, let's move on to wind farm pros and cons.
Anybody here have them, first of all? I know there's some.
Yeah, we got them, and they sure.
Talk about pros and cons as you see it, for the ones that are in here.
I wanna know the good first.
I called two landowners last night, I seen this was on the agenda. They both have wind towers on their property. One was lukewarm on it, the other was totally against them. She said if we knew now what we knew then, we would have never put them on. They lied to us, the companies lied to them. The other one, he said we were promised big towers, and when they started construction, we got little towers. So he said that was half the income. The roads were not the same in that area. That's something you really have to keep if you're going to get them towers in. Check or get contracts to keep the roads up. The noise, they said it's not too noisy. Well, when the wind blowing right, it sounds like a generator playing in that area. One fella, he said he has good income. He's got 3 acres tied up and getting $17,000. He said he can't grow crop for that and get that return. He said it is here now. Would he make another one? I have to look at him now. I might as well look at another one and get the income. There was, the one said about television. They didn't get a television reception after they wanted to get cable, so now we say that's an after 6. So they're used to looking like
No shadowing of the.
that kind of messes with your mind when you're working close to it.
What's close?
I was building fence around them and see the shadow coming at you if you're not used to working, and you think something's coming up behind you, a cow or something, you don't know.
Well, I mean, are you a half mile, a mile, 2 miles?
No, I was ready there. Early in the morning, I can see what you're saying. If the sun is shining through there, we can get that. And they say people with epilepsy, that can set them off.
Do you have any pros or cons? Or did we cover them?
He covered most of it. The TV I thought was a bunch of crap, so I asked people in Otter County. And, the blades are turned a certain way, they can't get TV. So, but they did offer, on my side, they did offer the people, let's say Dept TV for internet and all that. And it was a pretty healthy package. Some guys-
20 years.
For 20 years, some guys turned it down. He said that was hush hush money. I said, well, that's your problem. If you can get Dept TV, you know, it's a whole package for nothing, take it.
Yeah, that's for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
Right. And some other places, they planted trees for some of the noise. On our side, we really don't have a lot of complaints.
Yeah,
I know Tom Bernhardt said he doesn't think he'd do it again,
right.
but, you know, Bones, what, I don't even know his name.
Terry.
Terry Weigel, well, he was looking at the income.
Yep.
He has no problem. And Alan Weigel, no problem.
My in-laws just signed up because everybody else around them was signing up, and they're like, well, we gotta look at them, we may as well get the income, so.
Now we've got a new project coming. In fact, they started, we had a couple people that were against it, but they didn't sign their land up. But they came to the meeting and protested against it, because they were renting land that the people put the towers on. Right, so to me, I can't take their.
The other thing you hear is spray planes.
Yeah.
One said we do have spray planes that fly in those fields.
Yeah, I talked to NDACO not so long ago, and they said they're looking into if the pilot or gets enough notice, they're gonna put them in, so, let's say you're flying north and south, they'll shut them off and turn for time zone.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would help.
They're working on that.
I worked at a wind farm.
South Dakota, Pekin County, and we had a plane go up there, spraying, and we did shut the towers down for them. I don't know if we turned them, but we did shut
They
them
want
down.
to turn them now.
That would make sense, yeah. That would be a good issue.
We had some issues with roads the next year, the next spring, wow. And, but then like this year was an exception, too, and roads, they just blew up.
Yeah.
There was no traffic,
No
no
spring week.
and it was been waste, but anyway, next year was good to us, because I called them, and in the contract, they're supposed to come fix it. And they were in Colorado or Wyoming, and they gave us the material, we ended up with a lot of material, we ended up with labor, but we got a lot of material, lots of it.
When they
We
were,
get 10,000 yards,
I have it figured at home.
I think 10,000 yards of gravel they gave us.
when they were building, they were good at keeping the dust control.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you did a good job that way.
Well, this pipeline, you definitely take some advice from them or whatever. I don't know how well companies handle it, but what we've had to go through has been pure hell.
For what was that?
That water pipeline.
Water pipeline.
Oh, but you and I both was ever gonna do.
What diameter is that?
6 feet.
6 feet.
Well, with all that said, should we talk about, are we done with that subject, I guess?
Sort of.
Sort of. Now it's gonna be wind, solar, battery, and data setback. It's gonna be all in one now, at the end.
This is our current challenge, is trying to create zoning ordinances for things that we wouldn't even imagine a couple of years ago. And just curious what the other counties are doing here for this stuff. I picked up the Fargo Forum a few days ago, talking about the $7 billion data center in Dickey County, down by Ellendale. You know, you get some of the good, some of the bad, but it's, you know, I look at that. Obviously, they're gonna have a lot of new residents who are well-paid individuals. That's gonna benefit your business community substantially, and so on and so forth. There's 20 brand new houses that are being built in Allendale, North Dakota. Who would ever believe there's more than one being built at any one time, but there's 20 being built right now. So that obviously is an injection into their
Economy.
And gonna build another 20 this fall.
Yep, and so that's the good side, obviously, but where are you all at on, you know, your planning and zoning for these things? You know, we've got a company that wants to get a little bit into Wells County with wind towers. The bulk of the projects in Eddie County, and go back a few hour ago, I said there's folks from Eddie County that are coming over here trying to conduct our meetings for us. But it's not a big splash for us, but it's something, but you obviously gotta look at the downside of it too. And so my question to each of you is where you are with, whether it's wind towers, solar panels, battery storage, data centers, what are you doing in planning and zoning? Are you there yet?
Our planning and zoning manual has wind towers in it, and it has solar in it. We've not done anything for battery and data centers. But we do, and there was supposed to be a solar, there was talk of a solar one, it's been 4 or 5 years ago, in Peter County, so the planning and zoning board did put something in our manual on for solar. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
And we had a wind ordinance from 2008. Okay, well,
towers have changed a lot since then. They're substantially larger, and that's our predicament right now. We have these 600 to 700 foot towers, and a zoning ordinance that was written for maybe 300 to 400 foot towers, and
That's what we would be to March 2008.
And so, yeah, I believe our ordinance said 1,250 feet, I think the state recommends 1,850. And the conversation here is at a mile. So it substantially changes this, and we're in the middle of trying to write a policy for a farm that's already, they haven't been permitted yet, but they've been planning for more than a decade. This is a really touchy subject in our county right now.
I remembered seeing something at the National Association of Counties event, and they had they've got a thing called Sol Smart, SOL. But you might want to check their website. They've got some publications on solar zoning and might have some good guidance there too. And I know they've got like a group you can join where they have phone calls and talk about it. So I knew that was something that they were focusing on.
Our attorney here at Groton, he brought up a good point. If you're in the middle of rezoning, when they come for a permit, you can keep rezoning for a while until you get it all straightened out before you have to make a decision on that permit. Get it all fired out. Do it right.
We haven't had one yet?
No, but obviously I know their goal is to be permitted by this fall. The sooner the better, but this is a real challenge. So when it comes to those things, the zoning that you do have right now, what are your setbacks for those of you that do have zoning in these areas?
I don't remember. I think
It's 1,500 $1,500 500 different blades.
Or off the ground, from the ground to the bottom, when the blade comes to the bottom.
Pretty high.
75 or more.
75, I'd say. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all in, we discuss all that all the time.
I don't think anybody has a battery in data center setback yet, because that's so true.
Yeah. I wish James and I had social service meetings that the guy from Dickey County Commissioner. The last time he said that data center is gonna put a big battery in case the power goes out, and I can't remember, 7 seconds or 7 minutes to keep the data center going until the generators kick in. Once the generators kick in, 7 minutes,
Was it that all?
and then it takes, once they get going, the generators, it takes 4,000 gallons an hour.
Oh.
So then he was talking about generators, and a couple days later, I see one on a truck, 24 axles under the truck, carrying a generator.
They said
For a data center.
For a data center.
for that data center, and then they were talking about noise with those data centers.
Yeah.
The noise, and then there was, the roads, the township. That township wanted the county to take the road, and then they did annex
Now they
part
annexed it to Ellendale City.
into the city. They annexed
City
that
took
land
over.
into the city,
So that took money away from the township.
Yep.
yeah. And gave it to the city.
Jim and I were talking, we're getting a battery permit coming towards us. And we're thinking about a miner to require that in case one leaks, we need a miner to protect. Also, we talked about the curb, or the curb, a berm, in case that blows, that deflects the explosion up instead of out towards the public. But what could be safe? Setback, we don't know, none of it can feel for us.
That's the same thing with the carbon pipeline, they don't know. There's not many of you out there, they don't know if once it blows at that pressure, what the safe zone is gonna be, and what the batteries, it's all new stuff, it's around that people haven't seen before, so how do you, they say it's safe, but.
They said the Titanic was too.
For sure. I think they said unthinkable, right?
That didn't work out.
One thing that happened up at Carlson, North Dakota, years back, potato people moved in there. And it caused a lot of problems in the area because a lot of this land had been promised to young guys at a reasonable rate. Well, that raised the land up really high, and that's one thing, but here's the next thing that happened. They got all the irrigation pivots in there. In the first few years, the dust was so bad that a lot of the cattle were getting dust pneumonia from it and all that. Now, since then, they have rectified some of that. They have stuff out there on that, so there isn't no anything. But whenever there's change like this, that area will never be the same again. I mean, there's been caused a lot of issues here and there. It's just, that's part of life. We don't like it, but that's what's gonna happen with all this stuff.
Another thing about the data centers, they consume a lot of energy, but they produce nothing.
You need a lot of electricity, I've been told, and lots of water.
A lot of water, yeah.
They actually, I was surprised, they use a lot of water, but they don't consume it. They
Regenerate.
they recycle it through the ground to cool it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
I didn't know.
They take a lot originally, but it's a close.
right, yeah, close system.
Well, with all this said, we gotta move on and, the spurge thing.
Had a couple phone calls from people. They said, we got rules and we gotta control our spurs in our land, but yet when we drive down the road, the farm to market roads and the state highways have got spurs blooming to beat the band, and they're just wondering who you contact. And I said, well, start with your local weed board and such. But is there a time frame, I wonder, when that has to be sprayed by, like on the highway? Does anybody know?
I don't know, I'm not the weed board president, I can't answer that. Time frame.
I know we court Logan, and I've never heard of a time frame.
I was just curious, because this person was rather upset, because they had to, get their spurs controlled, and every time they drive somewhere, their spurs all over the place. And so, just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, isn't the adjacent landowner responsible to take care of the spurge and the right of way in the county ditches?
Not county, just township.
Just townships.
The county, we hire people to spray I call them FSA roads or county roads. We hire somebody to spray them. Not the township. The township hires this neighbor or that neighbor if townships want to spend the money to do it. They want township to do it. We used to do that, and then they wanted to let the landowner do it, and then we just give them the chemical. We in Wellstown.
We signed a memorandum of understanding yesterday to contract with Emmons County for their weed officer, and the weed officer will spray all the state highway rights away, farm to market, and the federal aid road rights away.
And then you want private spray to have big.
Correct.
We have sprayed the townships, pay the county managed individuals who are hired to do the spray.
We've got a sprayer, weed officer, and he does the county roads, and then he contracts out, state, 94, and some of our county roads. He's got it broken into parts for the county, so there's too much area for one person to cover.
Are we done with the spurge discussion? Nothing else? Our next meeting will be September 9th down in Emmons. Going to adjourn.
I'd like to apologize to Jeff, I called him here and again, it's not the first time.
I've been called worse, believe it or not.
Well, and he gave us a lot of good information too, but I think our biggest problem is that 3%. You know, we discussed here today. Because the big populated areas, they don't care. It's the poor little guys that ain't gonna end up with any money. We're gonna have one here shortly. Oh, a motion to adjourn. So second? Oh, second. All in favor, say aye. Thank you for coming, you guys. Thank you.